My father humiliated me in front of 200 guests at his retirement party. I didn't cry, I didn't argue, I simply said 5 words into the microphone and walked away. By Monday morning, he found out why. 200 people laughed at me that Saturday night in September, not a nervous titter, not the polite chuckle you give when someone tells a joke that doesn't quite land. I mean the full open-mouthed, shoulders-shaking laugh of a crowd that's been drinking since 7 and thinks the man at the microphone is absolutely killing it. My father stood on a stage draped in navy and gold, the colors of his company, Ivan's Logistics, in a tuxedo that cost more than my first month's rent in Boston. A spotlight was on him. A wireless mic was in his hand. He had just thanked his wife, praised his stepson, and received a standing ovation from 200 of his closest friends, colleagues, and industry peers. And then he turned the spotlight to table 27, and of course he said, smiling wide, the way politicians smile when they know cameras are rolling, "This is my daughter, Heather." The room looked at me. I looked back, no degree, no future. He paused for the laugh. It came right on schedule, just freeloads off the family. Maybe someday she'll find herself a rich husband. The laughter was the loudest sound in the room. I sat very still. My champagne glass, Dom Perrin, the good stuff, poured by a server in white gloves, was cold against my fingers. My spine was straight. My face was neutral in the way that faces become neutral after years of practice. I was not embarrassed. I was not hurt. I was watching a man burn down a bridge he didn't know I owned. I stood up slowly, raised my glass, let every microphone in the room catch what came next. "Cheers," I said. "This is the last time any of you will see me." Then I walked out, heels clicking against hardwood, spine straight. The laughter died mid-breath like someone had pulled a plug. 200 people went silent all at once, and the only sound left was the rhythm of my heels crossing that ballroom floor. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Let me tell you something about my father before I tell you what happened next. Richard Ivans built Ivans Logistics from a 2-truck operation in suburban Connecticut into a mid-size freight company doing somewhere north of $60 million in annual revenue by the time he retired. He was good at what he did. I will not take that from him. He had grit and instinct and the particular kind of confidence that men in his generation called leadership and everyone else called refusing to be wrong. He also had a first wife, my mother, who died of ovarian cancer when I was 9. After that, it was just him and me for 4 years, and those were good years, honestly. He coached my soccer team. He learned to braid hair from a YouTube video. He came to every school play, every science fair, every awkward middle school concert where I played a single triangle note and tried to look serious about it. And then he met Linda. Linda Marsh was 3 years younger than my father, blonde, efficient, and the kind of woman who rearranged your kitchen the first time she visited and called it helping. She had a son from her first marriage, Marcus, 4 years older than me, already in college when they married, already consuming oxygen in a way that left less of it for everyone else. I was 13 when they got married. By the time I was 17, I understood a few things clearly. I was not in the family picture Linda was building. Marcus was. And my father, the man who once learned to braid hair for me, had let someone redecorate that picture without asking if I was still in it. He wasn't cruel, I want to be clear. He wasn't the kind of father who screamed or hit or disappeared. He was worse than that in some ways. He was the kind of father who was simply less every year, less present, less interested, less convinced it seemed that I was worth the same investment he was making in Linda's son. By my senior year of high school, I had stopped noticing the gaps because the gaps had become the whole floor. And then came the money. My mother had a life insurance policy, not enormous, $120,000. She had left it for me specifically in a trust designed to release at 18 for college. My father was the executive. I know this because I found the original policy documents in a shoebox in our attic when I was 16 doing a school project about my family history and looking for old photographs. I photographed every page on my phone, filed them in a folder I labeled History Project. Then I put the shoebox back exactly where I found it and said nothing. I waited. At 17, I got into Northeastern University full academic program, not a scholarship. I would need tuition. My father sat me down the spring of my senior year. Linda beside him on the couch and explained in the gentle but firm voice he used for difficult conversations that college finances were complicated this year, that Marcus had been accepted to a prestigious MBA program, that the family had to make some hard choices. "A girl doesn't need a degree to have a good life," Linda said. She had actually said those exact words back in 2011. "You'll find a nice husband someday." My father nodded. I looked down at my hands. "What happened to Mom's trust?" I asked. Silence. "The life insurance policy, the one she left for my college." More silence. And in that silence, in the way my father's jaw tightened while Linda stared into the distance, I got my answer. "That money was needed for the business," my father finally said. "You'll understand when you're older." I was 17, I understood perfectly. I moved to Boston that August with $2,000 I had saved from 3 years of babysitting and waitressing, one suitcase, and photos of my mother's insurance documents stored in a folder on my phone labeled History Project. I never moved back. I wish I could say it was easy. It wasn't. My first year in Boston was the kind of difficult that's hard to describe, which is ironic, considering I now employ people whose entire job is putting difficult things into words. I shared a 3-room apartment with 2 girls I found on Craigslist. I worked as an admin assistant at a small freight brokerage in South Boston, earning $9 an hour plus the occasional $10 tip for coffee runs. I ate a lot of rice. I learned that pride is a luxury and asking for help is a skill, but I also learned something else. I studied supply chain management through free MIT OpenCourseWare lectures on a laptop with a cracked screen after midnight, once my roommates had gone to sleep. I learned freight economics from trade publications during my lunch breaks. I learned negotiation from a podcast hosted by a Harvard Business School professor whose voice sounded like a foghorn, but whose mind was as sharp as a scalpel. I completed every free certification I could find: logistics, project management, and operations analysis. By 22, I was managing accounts. By 24, I was handling my own client portfolio. By 26, I had built enough relationships, knowledge, and credibility in Boston's freight industry to clearly see the company I was ready to create. I founded Meridian Consulting in April of my 26th year. It was just me, a contract lawyer named Diana Reyes, who charged flat fees and never doubted I'd succeed, and a second-hand desk I carried up 3 flights of stairs by myself. The idea was simple. Mid-sized freight and logistics companies were losing huge amounts of money because they couldn't properly analyze their own supply chains. I could. I could redesign their operations and save them money they didn't even realize they were losing. It grew slowly, then all at once, just like most things that truly matter. By 30, Meridian Consulting had 15 employees, an office in Boston's Fort Point neighborhood with real windows and real furniture, and $4 million in annual revenue. I had built every bit of it myself. 3 years before the night my father stood on stage and called me worthless, Ivan's Logistics signed a 5-year contract with us. There was one reason my name never appeared anywhere. When I launched Meridian, I intentionally kept my personal profile low, partly because it was smart business. In a relationship-driven industry, the company's reputation mattered more than mine. And partly because I had learned that visibility invites interference. I wanted the business to stand on its own before anyone tried to interfere. My CFO, Jonathan Brace, a quiet, methodical finance expert with 14 years of experience, handled all external communications. Jonathan negotiated the contracts. Jonathan signed them. My name existed only on the incorporation documents and inside our internal systems. Nowhere public. The Meridian website listed our services, our results, and our team, not me. When Ivan's Logistics first came to us 3 years earlier, they came through a referral from another client in the Connecticut freight corridor. Jonathan handled the pitch. Jonathan signed the agreement. My father had absolutely no idea that the company he constantly praised as the backbone of his operations belonged to his own daughter, and I kept it that way. Not because I feared him, not because I wanted his approval, but because I understood something he never would. The strongest position is the one your opponent doesn't even know you're in. I sat at table 27 that Saturday night in September, hidden behind a pillar near the service entrance. I watched my father proudly tell another shipping executive that Meridian Consulting had completely transformed Ivan's Logistics. They changed the way we think about freight, he said. Whoever runs that company is a genius. I've been trying to meet them for months, the executive replied. My father shrugged, never met them. Doesn't matter who they are as long as they keep delivering. I hid my smile behind a glass of Dom Perignon. Marcus found me on the terrace at exactly 8:47 p.m. I remember because I had just looked at my phone. Jonathan had texted to ask how the evening was going. Marcus was on his third cocktail, wearing the kind of expression some successful men mistake for confidence. "I heard you started some little company up there," he said. "Playing businesswoman," he laughed. "How long before it fails?" 6 months, I looked at him calmly. "You're going to wish you treated me differently," I said. He laughed even harder and walked away. 40 minutes later, my father took the stage. He thanked his wife. He introduced Marcus as the new CEO of Ivan's Logistics to a standing ovation. He told a story that made himself sound like the visionary behind everything. Then the spotlight landed on table 27. "There she is," he said. "No degree, no future. Just freeloading off the family." 200 people laughed. I raised my glass. "Cheers," I said. "This is the last time any of you will ever see me." The sound of my heels echoed across the hardwood floor. Outside, the September air was cool and clear. I stood on the sidewalk for exactly 45 seconds, taking one deep breath. Then I got into the car I had arranged before the party, because I had known this was how it would end. I'd been planning for 6 months. At 8:03 Monday morning, 2 documents left my office by courier. The first was Meridian Consulting's official notice terminating its service agreement with Ivan's Logistics, effective in 30 days. The reason given was simple: strategic repositioning. The letter was formal, professional, and printed on Meridian letterhead. Jonathan had reviewed it Friday afternoon. Our contracts attorney, Rachel Park, approved every word on Saturday morning before the party. The second document was different, a personal letter, addressed to Richard Ivans. Marked private and confidential, hand-delivered by a separate courier directly to his home. I wrote that one myself. I revised it 7 times over 6 months. By the final version, it was just 4 paragraphs, no profanity, no emotion, only facts. "The company you called the backbone of Ivan's Logistics, Meridian Consulting, is mine. I built it, I own it. For 3 years, without your knowledge, the daughter you told 200 people had no future has been a cornerstone of your business. Around 40% of your operational efficiency runs through systems I designed. I hope Saturday night was worth it. Don't contact me again." I included a copy of Meridian's incorporation papers with my name listed as the sole owner. The next morning, by 10:04 a.m., I had 12 missed calls. By afternoon, my father, Linda, and Marcus were waiting in my office. I let them wait before meeting them. My father apologized, then immediately asked about the contract. "You're sorry because you need something from me," I said. "That's not an apology, that's a transaction." Marcus warned that people would lose jobs if I ended the contract. "It's a business decision," I replied, "just like spending my mother's college fund on your MBA. I told them I had known the truth since I was 16 and had copies of every document. I wasn't seeking revenge. I had built Meridian to prove myself, not to destroy them. Before leaving, I looked at my father. "Dad, I haven't needed anything from you in 12 years. 6 weeks later, I received a handwritten letter. He admitted his mistakes, said my mother had always believed I was the sharp one, and told me he was proud of what I'd built. I read it twice and kept it. I didn't throw it away. Meridian continued growing. We expanded our team, crossed $8 million in annual revenue, and signed new long-term contracts. I never needed my father's approval because my success stood on its own. People often ask if walking out of that ballroom felt satisfying. The truth is, I didn't cry. My hands were cold, and I thought about my mother and everything it took to build the life I have now. It was never about revenge. It was about proving that I could build something real without the people who underestimated me. I still keep my father's letter and an old childhood photo in the same drawer, not because everything is forgiven, but because the past remains part of who I am. My mother believed I was the sharp one. She was right.